Okay, so what we're going to learn today? What are we going to learn today? We are going to learn osteology, we'll learn dental profiling, a little bit of skull profiling, FSTT, then we are going to learn facial reconstruction, and then so much in 1 hour, little bit, I'm going to talk about each of them, how to go about.
Ok. Esto es lo que vamos a aprender hoy. Vamos a hablar un poco de osteología, antropología, de perfil dental, de perfil esquelético. Vamos a hablar un poco de el tejido blando de la cara, de cómo hacer la reconstrucción facial. Y esos son los temas que vamos a ir abordando poco a poco.
So many faces, each face is unique. How, that is the basis of biometrics. You will recognize just by the face. 80% of a body identification is done just by seeing a face.
Cada rostro es único y esa es la base para estudiar biometría.
Now there are around 7 billion. It is a quoted data that there are more than 7 billion cases of faces on the earth, but each of them is a unique one. Now that's what we use as a reference in verification. That's the basis of biometrics. And human body itself, the face has the maximum number of variables to compare with the other body variables.
El cuerpo tiene la mayor cantidad de variables para ser comparada con otro cuerpo. La biométrica se basa en que cada rostro es único y por más de que seamos millones y millones de personas en el mundo, no vamos a encontrar otro igual.
Now, when I talk about face, everybody who has got some science about something, or is an artist or an anthropologist, he sees with his own lens. It's a specs which you're wearing. It's a glass which you're wearing through which you see it. So everybody has different perception about this beautiful science which I'm talking about. So if I am an oral pathologist, I will look at it as an oral pathologist. If he's an artist, if an archaeologist, if a craniofacial identification, a forensic dentist, they all will look at, these are the specialities which the person looks at it.
Cuando nosotros hablamos de rostro, vemos de que diferentes dominios científicos tienen una perspectiva. La antropología física tiene una perspectiva, la antropología forense, los odontólogos forenses. No tenemos un solo concepto de lo que es rostro.
Okay. Can you identify? Yes, you can, surely. Why? Because you have saying the face and you can really say it. The center one is one of the most powerful man ever.
¿Podemos identificar a través del rostro? Claro que sí. Por ejemplo, tenemos la cara del medio, que es uno de los hombres más poderosos del mundo.
Now, can you identify?
Ahora, ¿podemos identificarlo?
How about this now?
¿Y ahora?
So the most difficult part is when you get a fragment of a bone and you have to establish the identity. So if we go back, this, and this, the most toughest job is what we are given, to identify, to establish an identity from these framework on which the flesh is put.
Para establecer la identidad, el trabajo más difícil es cuando tenemos un fragmento de hueso. Si tenemos una cara o el hueso completo es trabajable, pero en caso de un fragmento de hueso es mucho más difícil.
Okay, we established, see, I have added a component of teeth because I have proposed that, for any forensic facial approximation team, a dentist should be part of it because he is knowing a lot about it.
Sorry, I can't hear that.
I said that for any forensic facial reconstruction, a forensic odontologist should be included or an opinion should be taken.
Okay. Para todas las reconstrucciones faciales se debe tomar en cuenta a la odontología forense.
So I'll not go into the dental identification procedures. My topic is not today for dental identification, but I'll just skip through. You just see the slides for 1 minute and I'll skip through. You can tell them I'm skipping through the slides.
Ah, ok. No nos va a hablar de los procesos de identificación forense. Podemos ver solo va a pasar las diapositivas como para recordar que este es el procedimiento que se hace.
Okay, anybody who's doing forensic odontologist, most of you are dentists here. If you're doing forensic odontologist, these are the 3 things which we do in a dental profiling. And that's what we'll be doing in a skull also.
Okay. Para todos los odontólogos forenses, estos son los tres elementos que nosotros hacemos a la hora de la identificación. Establecer la etnia, tratar de estimar la edad y estimar el sexo.
Now, you will see that I have, in one of my articles, I have proposed that the dentist is having a lot of skills to really go about doing forensic facial approximation, because he is having knowledge of X-rays, CBCT. He knows where the anatomy is, how the musculatures are, what are the growth changes. So he's knowing a lot about it. And that's the reason he is very well suited for this. He knows the material science also, how to use a plaster, how to mix acrylic, how to use mix substances, etc.
En uno de mis artículos yo menciono de que los odontólogos forenses son uno de los más hábiles, de los que tienen más destrezas para el tema de la identificación. No solo saben leer radiografías, ven la parte dentaria, sino también tienen práctica con el modelado con los moldes que hacen, ¿no?
So for anyone, I have seen a reconstruction happening at your end also. I will just show you a picture also. And I think for a dentist, there is a column which I put. If you see, dentist is required to place in the team blend of art and science. He established basic procedures of 2D, 3D, and collects population data and forms group to collaborate. So these are the features which a dentist is having, and that's what I propose in my article, that a dentist should be a part of forensic facial approximation team.
Dentro del equipo de aproximación facial forense, en su artículo, él ha propuesto que sí o sí se necesita un odontólogo forense.
So let's explore the skull first. Bones, growth and development, and facial proportion. That's how you study a skull in this, when you see a skull. So,
Ok. Cuando vamos a estudiar un esqueleto, primero vamos a ver los huesos, el crecimiento y el desarrollo de estos huesos, y en el caso del cráneo, las proporciones faciales.
So if we see, the facial bones, the lateral view is seen and the frontal view is seen here. There are 8 cranial bones that are there, and there are 14 facial bones. So if you add 14 plus 8, that is around 20, 22. That's what there are paired bones, there are unpaired bones. So we can do that, but what you have to keep in mind that 8 cranial bones are frontal, parietal, temporal, occipital, sphenoidal, ethmoidal, and then in the why am I enumerating all these is that you should be pit pat when you should be able to feel them. Tactile thing should be there. You will, if they are fragmented and presented, you should be able to identify.
Okay. Ya. Cuando hacemos el análisis óseo, vemos en esta vista lateral y vista anterior de que tenemos un total de 22 huesos. ¿Por qué el doctor nos los menciona nombre por nombre? Porque nosotros debemos ser capaces de poder sentirlos, saber si hay algún problema, alguna fractura o algo por el estilo, y saber qué hueso es dentro de la cara.
So I know many of you are educated in the same field. Growth and development might be, for a layman, it is the same, but for us, it is, if you talk about growth, it is increase in size, whereas if we talk about development, it is changing and becoming more advanced. So there is a difference between growth and development. Just increase in size does not mean that you have not become advanced. You can grow in mass. Even a tumor grows in mass. That doesn't mean it is having development. Development is organized increase in size. So growth and development is important for a doctor or a person who's developing to understand, because you might get the picture or a thing of a different age, and you might have to reconstruct do on a different age. So you should keep in mind that also.
Okay. Tenemos que tener en cuenta la diferencia entre desarrollo y crecimiento. En el crecimiento hablamos de un aumento de tamaño, mientras que en el caso de desarrollo hablamos de los cambios a medida que va avanzando el tiempo. Entonces, cuando queremos evaluar las aproximaciones faciales, tenemos que tener en cuenta ambas cosas y que son diferentes.
A pediatrician is knowing well about growth and development. I'm not telling you to really go about reading, but I'm just telling you, involve as many people as possible. Take opinions from as many as people, especially pediatrician, orthodontist, a craniofacial expert, or a 3D animation or a 3D person should be involved. So take help from everyone when you are doing a work.
Okay. Eh, la idea es tener la mayor cantidad de opiniones posibles. Por ejemplo, en la tabla anterior nos mostraba cómo es el crecimiento para un pediatra. Entonces podríamos hablar con un odontólogo pediatra, podríamos hablar con un animador en 3D, todos los que nos puedan ayudar para estas reconstrucciones.
Now, if you see that, growth, the cephalocaudal gradient of growth, you have to keep in mind that head takes up around 50% of the total body length in the second month of fetal life, 30% at the birth, and the 12% at the total body length. So you would see the proportions changing, such a huge face and small body, then smaller, 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 and you have the proportions which are different. So at 25, you are almost 12% of the total body length. Okay. The face is 12% of the body length.
Con respecto a la cara, podemos darnos cuenta en esta tabla que al inicio la cara, por ejemplo, en este feto llega a ser prácticamente el 50%, mientras que va avanzando los años y la proporción que hay entre la cara y el resto del cuerpo va achicándose. Entonces, por ejemplo, cuando ya tenemos 25 años de edad, esta proporción llega a ser la cara, el 12% del cuerpo.
These are the, I can go on diagrams, beautiful diagrams, beautiful people have worked, especially in the Europe, when it was forbidden to really work on bodies, people secretly worked, and you know about Leonardo da Vinci, you know about various scientists who have really put their life in threat and really developed science.
Él podría seguir con muchas imágenes hermosas de muchos autores que han dedicado su vida a graficar estas diferencias.
Now this is the changing of facial proportions. If you see if I draw a face, if I put the maximum part on the down, then it becomes a very young face. The moment I start shifting it up, it starts becoming an adult face.
Aquí podemos ver la comparación. Por ejemplo, del lado izquierdo tenemos el cráneo de un niño o de un feto. Entonces, al otro lado, al lado derecho, tenemos el cráneo de un adulto. Si nosotros cambiamos la posición y levantamos un poco el mentón, nos damos cuenta de que este cambio de dirección y proporción del crecimiento nos da el del adulto. Tenemos que tener en cuenta esta comparación.
So you see the growth. Now growth is downward and forward for any infant to adult. That's what you have to keep in mind when you are doing the reconstruction, because you might get an X-ray or a CBCT, which is of 7 years of age. When he was lost at 12, and when you find the body, it might be at 25. So you have to keep in brain, that this is how the growth took place. It might not match with what data you get. Data is never given like, it is, it is never given stat. It is always given on how it is collected from a dentist or a person where he got it done.
En esta imagen podemos ver mejor que el crecimiento del cráneo se da sobre todo en la parte inferior, y eso es algo que tenemos que tener en cuenta, porque probablemente vamos a querer pedir rayos X y de repente se podrían comparar con el crecimiento, los rayos X de niños versus el del adulto, y el crecimiento es inferior del cráneo.
You have to keep in mind there are appliances available. An orthodontist, like if you see this is an headgear which is there, if an orthodontist is in our group, he will be knowing that, how it goes about. This is, you should know about Herbst appliance. You should know about Mara, that is mandibular anterior repositioning appliance. I hope you are able to pronounce it. Mara and Herbst appliance about orthodontist, which he puts to have the growth of the lower mandible forward or upper mandible forward. Braces are fitted so that he can modify the growth.
Okay. Aquí podemos ver un aparato de ortodoncia que, por ejemplo, se usa para el tratamiento para el prognatismo, que impide de que el crecimiento del maxilar sea hacia adelante, y esto controla todo el crecimiento y modifica el crecimiento estimado para esta persona.
I'm again and again talking about proportions and growth because you might have to use them when you are doing it, and an orthodontist is well equipped to do such a thing. There is some study called as Bolton's. This is Bolton's brush technique. Now this was developed. There are other techniques also to really go about knowing how the growth and development might have happened, because the picture which of the victim which is given, or a person who has died, might be of very young, and you have to really match and develop of how he would have been when he would have grown.
Okay. Nos sigue hablando de proporciones y crecimiento, ya que tenemos que tenerlo en cuenta. Por ejemplo, si estamos buscando a alguien que desapareció de niño, tenemos que hacer la proyección en nuestra mente de cómo pudo haber sido ese crecimiento hasta el adulto. Aquí él nos va a enseñar el método de Bolton Brush, ya que eso es lo que es parte del estudio de aproximación facial forense.
Okay, now maximum thing, now when we are studying, I will talk about the skull, I'll talk about, but you should know that we have flesh on it. We have a framework, and then we have flesh on it. So how to put that flesh, how to know that flesh, that thickness of that is specific. Like if I talk about Peru, the average height might be 6 feet. In my country, average height is around 5 feet 5 inches. So proportionately, the face is there, what kind of a face is there, and how much will be the thickness of the tissue.
Yeah. Para examinar lo que es la aproximación facial, tenemos que tener en cuenta de que hay un grosor del tejido blando que está adherido a los huesos, y este grosor no va a ser constante. Por ejemplo, en Perú miden aproximadamente 6 pies, mientras que allá en su país miden 5 pies y medio, y eso no da un valor constante al grosor del tejido blando que está sobre el cráneo.
Keep that in mind. When we do a reconstruction, this is manual one. We have around 10 central points and 11 lateral points which are there. This is for manual reconstruction when you do. But for a 3D reconstruction, we have a different concept.
Okay. Los puntos que nos está enseñando son para reconstrucción manual, que son 10 anteriores y 11 laterales.
And for this, I recommend a book named Karen Taylor's book for reconstruction on 2D. That book is very simple to really follow. If you see, I had shown a picture of Karen Taylor right at the beginning.
Ok. Él recomienda un libro de Karen Taylor para la reconstrucción facial, que es bastante didáctico y entendible.
So, if you want, I'm doing a study on this, knowing the thickness at different points and in various classes of malocclusion, like class 1, class 2, class 3 malocclusion. I'm trying to know the thickness at various points, these points which are there, these central points. You should have data for your own country, because if you do not have data, you will not be able to do reconstruction. You have data for American population, then South American, you can have European. They all vary, especially if you are different race. It might not much vary in European and because they're all Caucasian based. But if you talk about mine, Asian and Caucasian and Mongoloid, like Chinese, these three will be totally different from each other.
Okay. Él está haciendo un estudio en su país sobre cuánto es el grosor del tejido blando en cada uno de estos puntos. Es importante que cada país tenga sus propios trabajos, ya que por temas de raza muchas veces no es comparable, por ejemplo, los datos que se tienen entre Asia, Europa y Latinoamérica.
Now, what are the problems faced in categories? Now, you have to keep in mind there might be shrinkage, because you have to know the thickness. So how you have to calculate, you have to have a data for your own country. I'm talking which I faced. Getting a data was very difficult because the bodies are bloated. the bodies are, because you tend to get a CT done of a dead body, or you have a pin method which is there. Pin you will not be allowed because ethical issues are there. But uh, then the body is placed in a horizontal manner, whereas when you stand, there is difference. Then there is bloating, there is drying, then there is muscle tone shrinkage after death. So you have to keep in mind that what data you are getting might be, really not applicable.
Ok. El problema de trabajar con cadáveres es de que muchas veces el tejido se encoge, hay pérdida de la musculatura, están embalsamados, están desecados, incluso la posición horizontal del cadáver modifica el grosor del tejido. Entonces tenemos que tener en cuenta de que quizás no estamos recogiendo datos muy precisos si es que estamos trabajando en cadáveres.
So it's the dead body methods are not that good. I feel these methods which are there are not good. These are better. The ultrasound and the CT scan are much better. But you know how ethical issues are. You will not be allowed to work. Like I proposed a project in my university. It was shot down there and then because I wanted to get a CT done. Now I have really modified it. It is for individuals who are actually getting it done, and I'm taking data from there. But otherwise, if you just want CT done for having a thickness, you will not be allowed.
Ok. Él dice que en verdad es mejor aplicar estos métodos en vivos. Cuando él quiso aplicarlo en su universidad, él quería tomar una tomografía de cada uno de sus sujetos de estudio. El problema era de que no le iban a permitir tomar una tomografía de cada uno de ellos. Entonces lo que ha hecho es, cada persona que se va a tomar una tomografía, él está trabajando con ellas y no al revés, ¿no?
Most appropriate might be this MRI scan. Now, in my country, this is one of the breakthrough study which I always use the data from. This is Daisy Sani's. She's an anatomy person who did a study.
It's 6 o'clock.
Who did this study, and then I suppose because reconstructions are happening in Peru, so I feel that you might be having a very good database as well, and especially when you have a Caucasian base.
Ok. Este es uno de los trabajos en estrellas en los que él se basa, en que habla de cuál es el grosor del tejido dentro de India, y en ese trabajo se basan muchos otros trabajos para poder hacer la reconstrucción.
And you have to keep in mind, in living individuals, these are the factors which might influence the thickness of the face as well.
Yeah.
The nutritional status.
Sorry.
No, please go ahead.
Ok, estos son los factores que tenemos que tener en cuenta que pueden modificar el grosor del tejido en los individuos.
Very important for especially whole life. You are trying to, especially if I'm quoting it, especially males and females try to mask their age, which might be very difficult for us if you have got a Botox done, if you got hair transplant done, hair implant done. For a person who's rebuilding, it might be very difficult to really go about getting a thing done, because everybody is getting a Botox injections. They are getting. I'm just telling you that we play with age, and that's what is difficult nowadays to really judge what the age is right now, because wrinkling, the wrinkling, the horizontal wrinkling, or the mucobuck, these folds which are there actually decide, or the vertical height, the fold which is there is going for a person like me. It actually decides how we put an age in it.
Ok. Hay un problema cuando tratamos de estimar la edad facial solo mirando, ya que actualmente todos usan Botox, todos se trasplantan el cabello, y eso modifica la edad que nosotros vemos, ¿no? Entonces es un poco difícil acertar, ya que todos están haciendo estos retoquitos.
So I'll quote, correct amount of facial fat at correct places decides your youthfulness of face.
Entonces, en verdad, actualmente no hay un estándar para ver cuán joven es una cara, ya que esto es modificable por muchas variables.
So you have to know the dynamics of aging as well. So I have built up my case now. If you have to know the triangle, this if you see, there is a change in the there is a significant change which is there in the in the triangle which is there, you're seeing, and we play with that, the inverted and the vertical triangle which you see.
Ok. Lo que sí tenemos que saber la dinámica del envejecimiento. Él usa la técnica del triángulo en la que podemos ver cómo el envejecimiento, primero al inicio nuestro triángulo tiene una forma y al final termina de esta otra forma en los adultos mayores.
So these are tools, are toys which we play with. A craniophore, or a vernier caliper, or a sliding caliper. These all are required when you are planning a study on various matrices, various databases which you want to establish from the skulls available in your museum.
Okay. Cuando se va a trabajar en cráneos, estas son parte de las herramientas que vamos a usar, muchos de ellos son calipers, porque se va a tratar de hacer un estudio en el que se van a reunir bases de datos respecto a estas medidas.
So people do ask, I have traveled around met many people doing forensic art and science. It's not about, I am trying this, I am trying that, I am doing study on this. I see people doing lots and lots of things. I suggest take one branch and become master in it, because it's not how many kicks you have done. It is one kick which you practice so many times which is important.
Okay. Lo que él recomienda es de que nosotros debemos coger una rama y hacernos expertos en esa rama, ya que no importa si nosotros sabemos hacer 100 tipos de golpes, lo que importa es que nosotros seamos los mejores haciendo al menos un tipo de golpe.
So this might be the definition. I'll not go into the definition of what a forensic approximation is, but I'll rather go in telling you what exactly happens when you have an unrecognized skeleton given to you. So instead of me reading out, you can read out what happens here.
Okay. Lo que él no nos va a hablar de la definición de aproximación facial, pero sí nos quiere mostrar este flujograma de qué pasa cuando llega un esqueleto que no es reconocido.
Okay, now since once you have a body which is established, like you have a body which is sent to you for facial reconstruction, how to go about. Now, methods which are there might be 2D or 3D. 2D means you can take a skull. There is one method of superimposition which is there if you have if you have a suspect, or if you have some kind of a knowledge that this might be that, you can superimpose also. That's a very crude way of doing it, but there are 2D and 3D. And 2D you have radiographical and graphical method. In 3D you have manual and computerized, and you can see the various software. One of them, the best one which you are seeing is the haptic feedback, in which computer touches back. The earlier ones which are there are which you are building on the computer, whereas this is really tactile. If you follow me on Instagram, you can see the various freeform method which is there. Virtually you can rebuild.
Okay. Hay distintos métodos para la reconstrucción facial. Esto va a depender también de que finalmente si vamos a tener con quién comparar, si hay algún tipo de sospecha, por ejemplo, de dónde viene este cuerpo, ¿no? Tenemos métodos 2D y tenemos métodos 3D. En el caso de los 2D tenemos las radiografías, los gráficos. En el caso del 3D son métodos maravillosos que pueden tener mucha sensibilidad, ya que se va trabajando capa por capa en la computadora. Si lo siguen en Instagram, podrían ver cómo él maneja estos softwares.
So if you see the manual method, it is having anatomical, then there is anthropometrical, and combination of this. So once you have a Russian, American, and then you have a British, that is a combination method. So you have all the superpower coming here.
Ok, si ve el método manual, por ejemplo, podemos ver que hay una combinación de distintos métodos en los que incluso podemos tener de Gran Bretaña, podemos tener de Europa, y vamos a tener unos aproximaciones de acuerdo a cómo se vería en cada una de esas poblaciones.
So workflow. First is preparation of the skull, then you have to analyze the skull, and then you have to reconstruct the skull.
Ok, para poder trabajar, ese es el flujo. Primero se prepara el cráneo, después pasa por el análisis antropológico y luego se pasa a la reconstrucción.
So preparation is manual, digital, and digital manual and manual. So in manual, you have reassembling the bones which are there, fragments. You can stick them, glue them, you can fix them. You have to clean them, consolidate them. There are various methods. There are lots of things involved in this. But I'm just skipping through and just telling you manual, digital, and digital. So that's how you go about. In digital manual, you have to scan the skull and then rebuild manually on it. So you have manual where do not build, you build directly on the skull, or you duplicate the skull in plaster and then you rebuild it. In digital manual, you duplicate it and print it and then reconstruct. In digital, you just reconstruct it on the computer only. The total.
Para la preparación tenemos tres tipos. Uno que es manual, digital manual y digital totalmente. En el caso de manual, puede pasar por un proceso de limpieza, de modelado, de reconstrucción. En el caso de la digital manual, se hace en computadora, pero se imprimen estos fragmentos de reconstrucción, y por eso tiene la parte digital, que es la computadora, y la parte manual, que se imprimen y se reconstruyen. Y de ahí tenemos la aproximación de la preparación digital, en la que solo se trabaja en computadora y no se imprime nada.
So how to go about? You receive a skull, you make documents about it, verify the seal of tampering, skull preparation, soil and tissue is removed, clean and orient. Keep that in mind. Do not be overzealous and start working without checking for seal and chain of custody.
Ok. Recibimos el cráneo, tenemos que ver si tiene todos los documentos que debe tener esta muestra. Vemos si está bien sellado, vemos cuál es la preparación que le vamos a dar al cráneo. Y finalmente todo esto tiene que estar con su cadena de custodia.
Now, this is a skull which I was supposed to work on a live skull, which I was not allowed in my university. So I took an Amazon, maybe a $15 skull. I bought it. It's looking very odd, and then I tried to reconstruct it. And this is actually, when I was learning, this might appear for a person who is not a dentist, it might appear a rocket science, for them, mixing of alginate, mixing of plaster. We do it every day for teeth. So it was very easy for me to really get a skull out of a Amazon skull.
Okay. En su universidad él no tiene permitido trabajar con cráneos humanos. Entonces lo que hizo fue comprar un cráneo en Amazon, un cráneo así como lo ven, y se puso a investigar, ¿no? Era cuando recién estaba aprendiendo. Entonces, con todas esas destrezas que tienen los odontólogos para el modelado, que es lo que hacen gran parte de su trabajo diario, él mismo logró reconstruir un cráneo con estas herramientas que él tenía.
You have to block the undercut. Keep that in mind. Block the undercuts. Do not, there are videos available online. There are videos by Osgur Bulut. There is video by the Dundee University. Go about reading, go about seeing them, and learn on your own self. You have your own graph of learning. Everybody has different perception of using their hands and manipulation of material.
Ok. Lo que él nos recomienda es de que, así como lo ven aquí trabajando e investigando solito de cómo hacer para esta aproximación, que veamos videos en YouTube, que nosotros mismos podemos hacer ese tipo de trabajo, pero tenemos que mirar bastantes técnicas y para poder adoptar una nosotros.
Here I would like to really acknowledge people who have really given their life in this field of science. One of them is the name which is down, Shadi Sadr. I do not know how to pronounce that. He's from Turkey. Then you have various people actually who Shadi Nadir is no more. but amazing science and art which they had. They are forensic medicine people who have spent their life with dead bodies to really establish this science.
Okay. A él le gustaría honrar en estos momentos a distintos profesionales que han trabajado en esta ciencia, ya que han dedicado sus vidas tratando de establecer parámetros.
You have to orient the skull on a Frankfurt horizontal scale or a Krogman-Walker scale. Many of the orthodontists might be knowing this.
Okay. Primero se tiene que orientar el cráneo y nivelarlo. Hay distintos métodos, como podemos ver.
You have to be good at photography also if you want to do this is my picture taken by me in front of in front of my room. If you see, this is called as bouquet effect. Now what will happen is that the closer parts are very clear, whereas the behind part are dizzy. If you see photography of marriages, if you see photography of various celebrations, you will see that the person is appearing very clear and the background is very dull.
Blur.
Because you
Yes.
focus on the person who's near. So that's what you have to do when you're clicking a picture of a skull.
Ok. Esta es una fotografía tomada por él. Podemos ver que él usa un método llamado bokeh, que se trata en que tenemos que enfocar al momento de tomar la foto en el cráneo y el resto del entorno se va a ver un poco borroso, pero le va a dar este enfoque y va a resaltar el cráneo, que es el objetivo de la foto. Así es como él las toma.
3D imaging. Now this is very, very, very interesting. Very interesting. Various techniques are there. First being microscribe. Then is developing digital surface models, or you can do micro CT scanning or confocal microscopes, which are there. Once you tell these names, I will tell you about each one of them one by one.
Ok. Él nos va a hablar ahora de las imágenes en 3D. Aquí vemos diferentes nombres en que él nos va a dar una definición de cada uno de ellos. Okay.
Microscribe is
Ajá,
studying.
primero.
Okay, you're still speaking?
No.
Speak? Okay.
Yes.
Microscribe, studying geometry and manual landmarks, and it reads geometry. So microscribe is you put dots and it reads geometry of the surface. You put dots on the skull and it reads, the computer reads it.
Ok. Microscribe se basa en geometría y se trata de poner de forma manual unos dardos y la computadora va a leer estas posiciones de los dardos y nos va a dar una imagen.
Now, if you talk about digital surface models, you can have, in this, what you have is that you take multiple photographs around and then you superimpose them and create one mesh of a thing, which is, you have two companies which are there, which are doing it. It is Proteus and Artec. The Artec is Russian, Proteus is US.
Ok. Con respecto a las fotos de estos modelos, primero está la fotogrametría, que se basa en tomar muchas fotos y luego todas estas pasan por un software y se hace un consolidado que nos reconstruye el objeto del que estamos tomando las fotos.
Many of us might be knowing what is CT scanning, the internal bone structures which are there. Now what you get is either OBJ file or STL file. Now OBJ file is very, very large and texture one, whereas STL, the size is large and texture is also incorporated, which is not much required by you.
Ok. También tiene microtomografías que nos dan, el problema es que dan imágenes, dos tipos de imágenes, pero son muy grandes, un poco difíciles de manejar, por eso no las usa mucho.
So you have to keep in mind, we will get a DICOM data and you have to convert it into OBJ or STL file.
Okay.
In micro-CT, you will get DICOM data.
Ya. En el caso de la tomografía, microtomografía, van a tener datos DICOM.
So DICOM to OBJ STL. DICOM to OBJ STL.
DICOM to
OBJ OBJ, OBJ and STL. So you will get DICOM data, which has to be, since you want to work, you cannot work on DICOM data. You have to work on OBJ or STL. So you have to convert the DICOM data to OBJ or STL.
Ok, entonces estos datos DICOM deben ser transformados en OBJ o STD.
STL, L.
STL.
Okay. Confocal microscope, the last one which you are seeing is this is not required much. This is required for very artistic, very small or a very thing. But for a person who wants to do reconstruction might not be required, but they are very specific and increased resolution, which is not required.
Okay. Just Dr. Tiago help us this OBJ and STL. Son los formatos en los que se exportan.
So if you see the three pictures which are there down, one of them is the smoothest one, then you have a little rugged, and then you have the rugged one. So anatomy of a 3D model, any 3D model is having any 3D anatomy of a 3D model. The very smallest one will be having 3 units, 3D point. One is the vertex, then is the edge, and then is the triangle. The vertex is the smallest unit. The edge is the line connecting the two vertices, and triangle is formed by 3 edges. I'll just repeat again. Vertex, edge, and triangle.
Yes. Ya. Abajo podemos ver 3 imágenes. Una que tiene la superficie muy lisa, una que tiene una superficie con algunas hendiduras, por decirlo así, y la tercera que tiene una superficie bastante rugosa. En el caso de un modelo 3D, vamos a tener 3 partes. El vortex, el edge, que son las líneas que entrelazan, son las líneas que se forman, y el triángulo.
Sí, just like a phone, a mobile phone is judged by pixels. Number of more the pixels, the more is the resolution. More number of triangles per area, more smoother it will be.
Ok. Trabaja algo así como los píxeles del teléfono. Mientras tengamos más triángulos en un área, más lisa va a ser esa superficie. Entonces, mientras más lisa es una superficie, mejor solución tiene.
But definitely the disadvantage is the more number of triangle, the more heavier file is.
Y mientras más triángulos tengan, más pesado va a ser ese archivo.
So after you have scanned it, now when you have a scanned CT of a bone, of a skull, now what you want to do is post-processing, because many of the unwanted thing will be coming in this. So you have to know what post-processing is done with. Post-processing is done with GOMS. There are various other softwares which are available. Now talking about scanning. Scanning can be of different types. There are various names which are given. You can read the names, types which are given down. Laser, laser pulse, structural light, and contact-based.
Okay. Cuando se escanea, de todas formas tenemos que procesar esa imagen, ya que muchas veces hay como artefactos dentro de la imagen, y vamos a usar diferentes softwares que son los que podemos ver abajo, ¿no? Laser Triangulation 3D, Scanning Technology, y todos los de la lista que sigue.
So you can scan. This is very beautiful. If you have, please download QLone on your phone. The QLone 3D scanning. You can scan small. You can teach your kids. You can teach your friends how to 3D scan. You can photogrammetry scanning. Just go about download QLone on your phone, and you can do 3D scanning. Very beautiful. You can scan the tooth.
What's the name? Sorry, of the app?
QLone 3D scanning. You can see down QLone 3D scanning.
Yeah. Nos recomienda bajar esta app de QLone 3D Scanning, ya que podemos hacer reconstrucciones en 3D en base a fotogrametría.
Okay. Very precise ones, very important ones, very crude ones are there. So you right from the GOMS is launching simplest one to the complex ones. You can see down. The 3D scanner. This is a 3D scanner.
Este es un escáner 3D donde podemos ver que tiene tienen partes en las que son muy precisas y partes en las que no, dependiendo de cómo se va tomando la fotografía, hay partes que tienen más resolución y menos resolución.
This is the on the right, the red one is the Next Engine, and this is the Artec Space Spider 3D scanner.
Este es otro tipo de escáner.
Next Engine, and Artec Space Spider 3D scanner.
Okay.
This is what we use. This is very easy to use.
Okay. Nos dice que este es bastante fácil de usar.
Now then you have what you do in post-processing is cleaning, repairing, and reconstructing on post-processing.
Ya. Luego viene el post-procesamiento, que tiene tres partes, la limpieza, la reparación y la reconstrucción.
Then you have 3D scanning. Then you have 3D printing. Now you have to print also. Once you have scanned it, if you want to do manually, then you will 3D print it. If you don't want to do it manually, you want to do it digitally, you will not 3D print it. You will do it on the computer screen only.
Ok. Tenemos opciones. Después de haber escaneado, podemos imprimirlo y podemos ver estas imágenes 3D, o podemos trabajar enteramente en la computadora.
Now is the anthropological. This is the most important part. I will just take 10 minutes, 5 minutes to really discuss this.
Ok. El análisis antropológico es la parte más importante.
So you have, when you are given a skull, you have to know, you will open up, of course, you will see the jaw, the lower jaw is present and the upper jaw is present. So what you do is you have to establish ethnicity, sex, and age. 3 things, if you establish, you are cutting down you are very close to the identity.
Ok. Cuando vemos un cráneo, lo que tenemos que determinar es la edad, el sexo y la etnia. Son 3 cosas muy importantes para que podamos enmarcarnos en nuestra investigación.
So if we talk about ethnicity, we'll start with dentition first. We'll start with the dentition. Just simplest of the things is that you arrange the upper and the lower jaw in occlusion and establish whether it is class 1, class 2, or class 3 malocclusion.
Ok. Primero, al ver la dentición, vamos a ver en qué clase está dentro de la oclusión. Vamos a comparar la oclusión entre el maxilar superior y el maxilar inferior y le damos una clasificación.
Sex from skull, how to get the sex from a skull. The easiest one is this one, out of the 3, that ethnicity, sex, and age, the easiest to get is the gender of the skull, the sex of the skull.
Ok. Entre las 3 cosas que nosotros examinamos, sexo, edad y raza, lo que es sexo es lo más fácil de determinar. Aquí vemos algunos parámetros que nos da el doctor.
The sexist, if you want to give 95% times you are correct if you are establishing from the skull the sex, because the usually if you have a aviator shaped orbits, if you have a heavier skull, it is male. If you have an orbital aviator shape, it is female. If you have a prominent gonial angle, it is male. If it is you can see the various ways which you can evaluate and tell. If you have a styloid process which is elongated, and then it is male. If it is rocking, if you're keeping the skull on the table and it is rocking, it has to be a female. So you have to keep in mind various features which will be establishing male or a female skull.
Ok, tenemos que tener en cuenta muchas de las características que nos pueden dar hasta un 95% de certeza de que hablamos de un hombre o de una mujer. Por ejemplo, si nosotros ponemos el cráneo sobre una mesa y rueda un poco, se trata de una mujer. Si vemos que el cráneo pesa más, tiene facciones un poco más toscas, y dentro de las características que vemos en esta tabla, podemos determinar, por ejemplo, que es hombre. Eso tenemos que tenerlo en cuenta.
I have merged them. I've kept in my book also. You can take a screenshot also if you want. These are the various differences between a male and a female skull.
Ok. Vamos a tomarle una foto a esto. Viene de su libro. Es cómo diferenciar el cráneo de un hombre y una mujer.
Okay, this is most important, the mandible, because this will be missing most of the times when you have a assault or an injury, or if it is the body's been there in a jungle. The first bone to dislodge is the mandible. Most of the time, you'll get just the skull and not the mandible.
Acá también tenemos lo que es con respecto a la mandíbula. Muchas veces se pierde ya que es bastante, se sale del cráneo fácilmente y solo nos llega la parte del cráneo sin la mandíbula, ¿no? Pero igual tenemos que tenerlo en cuenta.
Now, you have to mark on the skull when you are interpreting the traits. Keep that in mind, either by a nuchal crest or a mastoid process or a supraorbital margin or a supraorbital ridge or a mental eminence. You can really tell what will be the size, how the chin will be. Like if you have a prominent mental eminence, you will have a dimple here. If you have a very big mastoid process, the ear size is going to be enlarged. If you have this zygomatic arch extending backwards, a lot of them, then it will be more towards male. So you have to keep in mind, either it is a neutral female or a hyper female, it is neutral male or a hyper male. So you have to label it, because while reconstruction, you have to reflect it in your reconstruction.
Ok. Aquí en esta tabla vemos algunas características sobre el cráneo. Por ejemplo, si tenemos una prominencia mentoniana gruesa, podemos decir de que el mentón va a ser mucho más grande. Si tenemos un proceso mastoideo también grueso, podemos ver que podemos suponer que el tamaño de la oreja es un poco más grande. Entonces, muchas de estas características nos dan las características también del tejido que van a tener encima. También tenemos que mirar esta tabla y clasificarlo en hipermujer, mujer, neutral, hombre o hiperhombre. Y son los rasgos que vamos a tener cuando examinamos el cráneo.
Now, how to decide ancestry? Now, this is the toughest part, because we are intermingling. I can go and stay in Peru. I can, get a citizenship of US. I can become a US citizen, say sometime. Now it is a little troublesome, but then I can become a citizen of Europe or some other country. So there is intermingling. But for an anthropologist, social and ethnic anthropological groups are usually 4 types: Caucasian, Negroid, Mongoloid, and Astroid. You should know there are skulls which are divided into only 4 types, and most importantly 3 types, because the last one which I'm talking, Astroloid, might not be that much, because they are a little primitive ones. They might not be there. But then definitely you can find a Caucasian, Peru, South America, Negroid, African countries, Mongoloid, Asian, and Chinese.
Bueno, aquí podemos ver una representación de lo que sería cómo son las poblaciones antropológicas y que nos dan, que podemos inferir de acuerdo a los cráneos, ¿no? Pero definitivamente aquí nos faltarían algunos estudios con respecto a el tipo mestizo, de repente el tipo de diferentes países, ¿no? Entonces queda un poco primitivo, nos faltan más estudios, pero tenemos que tener en cuenta de que esto va a producir gran variabilidad a la hora de que vamos a examinar un cráneo.
So Caucasian, Negroid, and Mongoloid skull. You should be establishing what kind of features they are. There are very important ones. What kind of a root, what kind of a nose will develop, what kind of an eye will develop, what kind of a prominence of zygomatic arch will be there, how the orbits will be, how protruding the eyeballs will be, how the ears will be placed. All is decided on ethnicity as well, from age and ethnicity as well.
Aquí podemos ver los 3 tipos más importantes, y si bien, como ya hablamos, hay mucha variabilidad, sí tenemos que describir cómo encontramos y dónde está situado el cráneo que estamos examinando, ¿no? ¿Qué características tiene? Por ejemplo, qué tal son las prominencias del maxilar, cuál es la forma de los globos oculares, entre otros, ¿no? Eso es parte de la descripción que tenemos que dar.
You can take a screenshot if you want.
Pueden tomar una imagen si desean.
So very important to see. I usually have a cranial index done because that will decide what kind of a face will be there. Cranial index and the facial index should be done. Cranial index is maximum skull width about the length. That is a cranial index. That it decides either you are a dolichocephalic, a metallic, that is a medium headed, then you have a brachiocephalic.
Ok. Es importante tomar el índice craneal que se da de acuerdo al ancho y largo del cráneo, y esto nos va a dar nos va a permitir identificar ante qué tipo de cráneo estamos. Acá tenemos las medidas que se sacan de este índice.
So you do a cranial index and a facial index. Very simple. You have either you have a dolichocephalic, metallicocephalic, or brachiocephalic, and then you have a uroproscopic, leptoscopic, or a mesoproscopic face.
Ok, también se saca un índice facial. Ambos son bastante fáciles de manejar y de acuerdo a qué rango nos sale, vamos a decir si es europroso. Cada uno de estos es rango determinado.
So once you have a facial index and a cranial index, you will be able to establish you have to get a long face or a short face or a medium face. So you will have what kind of a face you want to develop, a long face, a middle face, or a short face. So you can see Hollywood.
Por ejemplo, de acuerdo a esas medidas que tomamos, podemos ver si tiene una cara larga, una cara mediana o una cara pequeña, y eso es parte de la identificación.
I'm sorry I have to use ladies to get your attention, but that's exactly what exactly we look at the face when we are looking at.
Okay. Dice que se disculpa de haber puesto damas para llamar nuestra atención, pero justo en estas fotografías se ve exactamente lo que él está buscando.
Age from skull, very important. So you have various sutures which are there on the skull, which are to be read. They fuse at a specific age.
Ok. De acuerdo al cráneo, también podemos ver estas suturas y nos puede ayudar a determinar la edad.
Here you have to keep in mind, it might vary from country to country. Many of the sutures might vary country to country because of the nutritional status, as well as the stature, as well as the environment which is there.
Ok, tenemos que tener en cuenta de que hay bastante variabilidad de acuerdo a la población en la que estemos, pero estos son los datos estándares que tenemos de acuerdo a la edad.
So you should know how a suture closed looks like. You should rate it and then get. Now talking about determining of age from mandible, the lower jaw, very important because it is very, very dimorphic. It can determine the age and sex both, the mandible.
Ok, es importante para determinar la edad también cómo vemos la mandíbula. Y si vemos, por ejemplo, esta en el adulto mayor, vamos a ver que tiene cierta resorción ósea. En cambio, la disposición de los dientes en el niño y en el adulto son bastante diferentes.
So, talking about gonial angle, I'm not going to detail, but gonial angle is also determining the age of an individual, sex of an individual as well as age. So, talking about various. This is forensic facial approximation. Now, once you have done you have done the preparation, you have done the analysis. Now, what you do is actually what you came here for, FFA, that is forensic facial approximation.
Después de haber pasado por todos los pasos previos, ahora sí vamos a entrar a lo que es aproximación facial forense.
Then is methodology. how to go about. We have determined the sex or n age. You have put the depth markers which are there. You have to keep an eye. You have to put an eye. Then you have to connect those markers and develop various spatial structures and do the photography. So manual method has these many things which you have to do. Determine the age, sex, putting the depth markers, placement of depth markers, setting of prosthetic eye, connecting the tissue depth markers, and developing face structures and photography.
Ok. Esta es la metodología manual que se realiza en los cráneos. Primero se determina sexo y edad, después se ponen los marcadores, se ponen ojos protésicos, se conectan estos marcadores se saca una profundidad, de estos marcadores con respecto al tejido blando que se presume que tiene, se desarrollan las características faciales y se toman fotografías.
Any reconstruction, I can see one of the picture which is there. If you see, that is of reconstruction at your end. Now this reconstruction is of Howari Mary Queen, which is from Peru. Which is this reconstruction happened. I have specifically put National Geographic on it because it's under not copyright. So you have to really, you can really search on National Geographic your reconstruction of a queen, 1200-year-old in your country.
Oh, thank you. Aquí nos muestra la foto de una reina de nuestro país que fue reconstruida para National Geographic. Dice que deberíamos buscarla.
Various methods I've already described. Now you put up markers. The most important and the most toughest thing to reconstruct is the nose. You have to really, these are the various methods you can go about reading. This is very easily available. If you want, you can take from me also the article, how to reconstruct a nose.
Una de las partes que tiene bastante más dificultad es la reconstrucción de la nariz. Tenemos diferentes métodos. Aquí podemos ver los autores de cada uno de ellos y tenemos que examinar cada uno de ellos cuando queramos hacer una reconstrucción de la nariz, ya que es bastante retador.
Just two names you have to keep in mind when you're searching: Christopher Ryan and Gressomore.
Again,
Gressomore.
please.
Two names okay. When you're searching in Google for nose will be Christopher Ryan 1 and Gressomore, Russian, Gressomore.
Ya, son dos nombres que tenemos que tener en cuenta cuando buscamos sobre nariz en Google. Again, please.
Okay, the names, I will repeat the name. Christopher Ryan, and the second will be Gressomore, the Russian. 1971, his article is there. The name is there. Okay. The method one, okay. Gressomore.
Ese que nos está señalando el doctor.
Okay. So
okay, thank you.
Welcome. The various nose. This is actually reconstruction on the computer, which is there. If you see the various how the intersecting points are met and how the nose is placed on a computer on a 3D reconstruction is given down. Really complex, but then if you are knowing that first, I suggest you should understand how to go about doing 2D, then go about doing manual 3D, and then attempt computerized 3D. At the end, computerized 3D if you really want to learn. But I think even the 3D manual is doing a great job.
Okay. Aquí podemos ver algunas imágenes de cómo se realiza la reconstrucción de forma digital. Lo que recomienda es de que primero pasemos por la reconstrucción en base al 2D, luego pasemos a la parte manual 3D y por último ya podríamos dedicarnos a la parte que tiene que ver con solo computadora. Pero es necesario que pasemos por cada una de esas etapas.
I have an issue. Can I take 5 minutes more? It will be done. I'll just take 5 minutes more. Just take permission.
Claro, yes, of course.
Okay. So what is the shortcomings? Shortcoming is there is insufficient data of your own population. Second is that it is very subjective, methodological inconsistencies. Then is lack of standardization of scientific method. These three are the most shortcomings of this reconstruction, especially if you are ill-equipped with softwares, if you are ill-equipped, if you are not like I was always, I'm a doctor, I was trained in bodies, I was never trained in computer. So I had to really struggle to really get myself trained.
Ok. Tenemos algunos problemas con respecto a esto de la aproximación facial forense. Primero, tenemos muy pocos datos con respecto al grosor del tejido blando. Después, el problema es de que tiene una naturaleza bastante subjetiva y el método suele ser muchas veces inconsistente. Y por último, hay poca estandarización y validación de este método como método científico. Entonces, nos faltan muchos más estudios para poder hacer esto de un método replicable y confiable.
Okay, the 3D world now, very fascinating, very difficult, but the best results come here.
Okay. Aquí vamos a hablar del mundo digital, que es bastante fascinante.
If you see in my hand, the equipment which is there is the 3D tactile back. That is the haptic, the haptic feedback which is there. This one, which is in my hand.
What's the name? Sorry.
Haptic, the computer touchback. You can really
okay.
touch.
Ok. Lo que podemos ver en su mano es una especie de puntero que tiene que ver con la computadora y ahí él va modelando, si se dan cuenta, en la pantalla que tiene frente a él.
I have compiled various softwares on which you can do a reconstruction. I have tried Blender. I have tried haptic feedback.
Aquí ya nos ayudó el doctor Barrera, nos dice que es Haptic Device. Así se llama el aparato que tiene el doctor. Justo es lo que nos está mostrando.
So you have Touch X and Touch. The right one which you see is what I have worked on. Touch X. Very, very sensitive, very beautiful devices on which you can do the reconstruction, where you want to add flesh, where you want to add, and then you can take a print.
Ok. Aquí lo que nos muestra el doctor es que él tiene el Touch X, que es bastante sensible, se puede ir añadiendo de forma muy precisa lo que sería el tejido blando en las reconstrucciones y luego esto pasaría a impresión.
Now, why do you require it? These are the advantages of 3D over 2D. That is, it is highly subjective, inaccurate, time consuming, and requires artistic talent. So these are the shortcomings.
I didn't catch that, please.
These are the shortcomings of reconstruction. That it is I've already discussed that.
Okay.
This is being subjective, inaccessible to remote areas. Like, if you do not have a software, then it is time consuming and requires artistic talent as well.
Okay. Estos son algunos tópicos que le gustaría tocar al respecto de estos métodos 3D. El problema es de que es muy subjetivo, es inaccesible en zonas remotas, consume bastante tiempo y requiere mucho talento artístico.
Some of my cases, how I have developed, how reconstructions were done, I'm just skipping through. Many of them are very sensitive ones. Various reconstructions were done. Okay.
Nos está mostrando algunos casos que ha trabajado para la reconstrucción.
Many of the assaults are in a closed setup, are due to domestic violence. They just very simple. And if you see, I have specifically involved an orthodontist for the malocclusion which was present, which actually was very important when I was developing it. Orthodontist. Okay. This is a report by an orthodontist, Priyanka Kapoor, who has given me a report that how to go about reconstructing. She gave me hints how to reconstruct 2D.
Ok. Aquí, por ejemplo, vemos un informe de un odontólogo que da bastantes puntos, bastantes pistas para que él pueda hacer esta reconstrucción.
Okay, now I'll finish it in 1 minute. 1 minute I'll take. Okay. One is skull chart. You should have, whenever skull comes to you, you should have a skull chart that, you know, this is the age, this is the sex. It is available. You can download it or you can take from me. It is very easy to make your own self chart of a computer, your own database for your own self. Then there are Aviso and other softwares which are available, like which can be used to convert DICOM to STL, which I told you, which is required because you will be getting a CT scan file, right? So you have to that comes in a DICOM. So you have to convert it into STL. You require Aviso software for that. For post processing, you can use GOMS. You want me to one by one tell you so that you can repeat? Okay. Skull chart is available. Skull chart for knowing. You should note down about the skull, first of all.
Ok, deberíamos tener una ayuda a memoria que diga, por ejemplo, qué debemos saber sobre un cráneo, qué datos deberíamos tomar.
Okay, Aviso, the second number. The Aviso software is used for converting DICOM to STL.
Ok, el software Aviso es para transformar estos archivos DICOM que estaban en lo que revisamos sobre tomografía a los archivos que pueden ser trabajados.
Post-processing is done on GOMS.
Is what? Sorry?
Post-processing, the number 3. Post-processing is done on GOMS software.
Ah, ok. El postprocesamiento tiene que ver con los softwares de huesos.
Nose is done by 2 names, Ryan, Christopher Ryan, and Grisamos. Nose.
Con respecto a la nariz, tenemos que buscar a Christoph Ryan y a Gerasimov.
The name of the clay which you can use to reconstruct is Chavanant NSP 3 kg. 3 kg pack is available. So name of the claim is CHAVANT, Chavant. CHAVANT. Name of the clay.
Doctor, could you write it down, please, then, maybe?
Sure. I will type it.
Okay, nos va a decir el nombre de la arcilla que usa para la reconstrucción.
Okay. And then is the facial aging chart, which is available. You can go about asking a skin specialist for a facial chart because he knows wrinkling very well because he's always injecting Botox in
it. También deberíamos tener una ayuda memoria respecto al envejecimiento facial. Podemos preguntarle a algún dermatólogo o a algún cirujano estético porque ellos tienen bastante en cuenta las arrugas de la cara para aplicar Botox.
Then is placement of the eye. The placement of the eye, you have to buy a 24 mm ball of a doll, which is available from Amazon or somewhere.
Okay.
A doll.
Yes.
A toy.
De ahí es importante colocar estos ojos de repuesto. Él usa una pelota de juguete que compra por Amazon de 24 milímetros.
Glasswagon, Glasvagan on Amazon. Glasswagon, Glassvagan. Glasswagon is the company which is manufacturing 24 mm balls for eye.
Ok, nos está dejando el nombre de la compañía que manufactura estos reemplazos de ojos.
DICOM to soft DICOM. This is how you convert from DICOM to import it into your reconstruction. This is a picture. You're converting
esta es una imagen de cómo se ve en DICOM y que después va a ser exportada para poder trabajar y después para ser impresa.
That's how my room looks like. That's how I want my house to be. Skulls everywhere.
Eso es como le gustaría que sea su casa, con cráneos por todos lados.
My kids are scared. I have become some kind of a voodoo artist.
Mis hijos tienen miedo de que me haya convertido en un artista vudú.
So it's not dream is not the thing you see in sleep, but it is a thing that doesn't let you sleep.
Acá nos deja una frase. Dice que los sueños no son lo que uno ve mientras duerme, sino son los que, sino es lo que no te deja dormir.
I conduct workshops on rugoscopy charts, on age estimation. I'll be more than happy to answer questions now. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. Nos mostró algunos workshops que él hace y acá nos deja sus datos. Está feliz de poder contestar nuestras preguntas.